We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully your day is going well. On this show, I'm away. I'm in Portland, Maine, spending some time with the wife. It's my 40th anniversary, so we get away to go someplace in the Northeast and look at colors, because you know me. You can tell looking at me, I'm a big color guy. I love looking at the fucking leaves. But if my wife likes it, that's what we're doing. Well, on this show, we're very fortunate to have a guest, and I always like it when we have a guest. And this guest has been on many times, Jace from Texas. He is a blue dot in a big red hematoma we like to call Texas. Welcome,
Well,
Jace.
some people would call me a big blue dot, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, happy anniversary. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me on.
Thank you very much. I never in my wildest dreams that would imagine that I'd be married. I'd do anything for 40 years. I realized when I got old is when I could look back 20 years and remember what I was doing. You know, when you're young, you're 23, 25, you can't remember back 20 years. I can remember back 40, 50 years. So I'm officially old.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring you on because there's some things in Texas that we want to talk about. And of course, the country at large and now the world at large. There's always some crazy shit going on. And the big news is this attack by Hamas against Israel. And, you know, some people who are younger are really surprised by this, but this is nothing new. This has been going on for decades before you were born, before I was born. This happened. It all started in like 47 or something. And ever since then, they've been at odds fighting amongst each other. Like in the last 15 years, they've had 5 wars. So it's not like this is a new occurrence. This is just a little more escalated than we've seen in the past.
Well, if you talk to any Republican, they would blame Biden for this happening, just like they're blaming Biden for what's going on down at our borders.
Right.
Like you said, it's been going on forever, but Republicans just think that it just fucking happened under Biden's watch, which is ridiculous. If anything about those stories, you had a couple TikToks on that about how Trump had that meeting in 2016 with those Russian spies. If anything, Russia's probably behind this because they want to take the emphasis off Ukraine. Because everybody now you got Republicans in the Senate like Josh Hawley saying, "Oh, well, we need to quit Ukraine and we need to give all this money to Israel." It's like they don't want to give a blank check to Ukraine, which I can kind of see, you know, because you got to kind of be worried about corruption anywhere.
Right.
But all of a sudden, you know, they don't want to give the Ukraine, but they want to give everything to Israel.
Right.
And I know a lot of that is because I grew up with it. A lot of your people in your especially your kind of, I guess, evangelical. I mean, they look at the Holy Christian as it's going to usher in Jesus returning. So they get really excited about this because I remember growing up with that, thinking, oh, you know, there was a fig tree or something in 1940. This is like in 1988.
Right.
That, you know, a generation would pass and Israel. I mean, it's been quite a few years since 1988, and they still get excited about this because it's, you know, God's going to come down and he's going to smite the enemy. And, you know, but how funny that is that they preach that, but they talk about the bear from I guess the north coming down. And isn't that supposed to be Russia? And that's the one that they love so much and have no problem with now. Putin's their guy, but Putin wants to invade Israel. I mean, and he's messing with them on this. So it's another contradictory on the Republican side.
You know, when I came up with that story that Donald Trump may have had something to do with giving Israeli information to Russia and then Russia to Iran and then Iran to Hamas, and they're all behind it. There was a lot of people on TikTok, especially Democratic creators, who, like a lot of us, think they know what they're fucking talking about. But they didn't call me out particularly, but they were calling out the idea that Donald Trump was somehow behind this as a conspiracy theory. And they said, yeah, I don't like conspiracy theories, whether they come from Republicans or the Democrats. And I'll just tell you this, Donald Trump is not behind this. Now, I can't say for sure that Donald Trump's behind it, but we clearly have a different definition of conspiracy theories, because a conspiracy theory on the right might be something they pull out of their ass to push their agenda with no evidence, with no facts, with no witnesses. And when they're proven wrong, they still shove it down your throat. That's a conspiracy theory. The idea of Donald Trump being behind informing Russia to inform Iran and then Hamas isn't so crazy, because like you said, actually, I think was it 2000? It may have been 2017 when Donald Trump had the 2 Russian spies in the Oval Office, and then whoops, he let some top secret info out. But don't worry about it. And they said this very specifically. It was reported. The top secret information he let out was military information about Israel. Now, somebody from the media went to Israel and says, "Are you upset about this? Are you mad about this?" I'm guessing they were, but they said, "No, we have complete confidence in the American government." So the fact that Donald Trump specifically gave Russian spies military documents concerning Israel, how can you say that's a conspiracy theory? And that all these years, from 2017, he just wasn't distributing these documents after he got out of the presidency. He was doing it all through the presidency and afterwards. So he's been doling this shit out for 5-6 years. And who knows what he did? We don't have anything but what's the word I'm looking for? Evidence. God, I can't remember. I just used it in the TikTok, but it's not absolute fact that he was involved, but they're sure enough to take it serious and look into it. I think. I don't think that's a conspiracy theory.
Those people that you talk about that are, oh, I can't believe you think that, Donald Trump's involved. They're like the same people, like when Trump does something and they're just completely shocked. Have you not been paying attention to the man? Yeah. I mean, the man, even before 2016, the guy has had, I mean, my God, he calls during 9/11, doesn't talk about the victims. He's just proud that he has the tallest building now. The Access Hollywood tape. I mean, there was a moment, wasn't there a time when he met Putin and he pretty much said in front of the world that he doesn't trust our intelligence, he trusts Putin. Right. And don't forget about that little meeting they had with nobody else around.
Right.
There ain't no telling what he got. I mean, that word you were trying to look at, I'm old enough to remember if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it may be a fucking duck.
Right, exactly. And too often people are given the benefit of the doubt. And if you're a journalist and you're asking questions, you need to stop giving people the benefit of the doubt. Hold their feet to the fire, ask the questions. I mean, on Tuesday, Ron DeSantis was on MSNBC with Joe Scarborough. And I thought, well, good. Ron DeSantis is so desperate, he's going to go on MSNBC and take a chance. He's socially awkward. He's got a bad temper. He'll be exposed for who he was. And Joe Scarborough, short. Joe Scarborough kind of cornered him a little bit, but he didn't do what he needed to do with Ron DeSantis. He didn't ask them the tough questions or put him in the corner.
No.
I was totally disappointed with MSNBC, Joe Scarborough. And I'm going to have a hard time taking. I never liked Joe Scarborough anyways, because I think he's a typical.
Well, he's a Republican.
He's a Republican. Yeah. He's arrogant, and doesn't know when to shut up. But I was disappointed by that whole thing. If you really want to take care of the situation and fix it, you got to nail Donald Trump and every other Republican that acts like him.
Don't you kind of also, with Donald Trump, he projects stuff that goes on, like when he's guilty of something, he projects. So what are him and the Republicans doing? They're blaming Biden for this. So that's more projection coming from, he knows what he did. But then again, the guy, just like you said, talks out of his ass. He's not about the future. He's about the moment.
Right. Oh yeah. He's,
and you talk about, I mean, and it's what gets me about the goddamn media. And, MSNBC, which I do watch, but I have kind of, pulled back a little bit. I mean, we just hear about how, old Biden is and, people are worried about his age. Well, goddamn, focus on what the shit Trump's saying at these rallies. I mean, he's just he was saying something the other day about. Then he started talking about Bill Belichick. Oh, do you think the Patriots? I mean, you talk about not all there, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, Biden's 3 years older, but I guarantee you, Biden could run miles around that fat fuck. I mean, he and I say that because, you know, I'm a fat fuck, so I can call somebody else a fat fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Trump, I mean, he just projects all this stuff onto Biden, don't you? I mean, if you just see the history, I mean, Trump doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, like you said, because there's probably shit we don't even know about
Yeah, that
that
we
would
will
make,
know
you
about.
know, that we will know about, but it's just, I mean, for these Republicans to still defend him for this, he's got either a lot of good information on them he got from the Russians, or he's got something. I mean, just how you can just, I mean, with the handful, but the majority Republican, I mean, they're all in. I mean, he could be on video, you know, doing this stuff. He's all in. They're all in. It defies explanation is how and the Republicans that do stand up, like Will Hurd, are just laughed off, and, you know, they're the weak ones because they, you know, people that actually, I wouldn't vote for Will Hurd, but it's, I mean, and you have people like Pence, you know, he sit there, they wanted to kill Mike Pence. Would you vote for him? He raises his hand.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, I've often said that as soon as Donald Trump got elected, I knew exactly what we were in for. And I knew that because I had a father that had a similar personality, much smaller scale. He was pretty well off, but not that well off. Well, maybe he was, now that we know that Donald Trump hasn't fucking made any money in decades. But
right.
But I remember a situation long after I was older, and I was supporting my uncle in a court case with my father, and I did that because he had a tendency to roll over the top of people that weren't willing to fight back, and my uncle wasn't like that, much like what Donald Trump does with the media. And we got in a little back and forth, and you know, he pointed his finger in my face, and he was trying to intimidate me, and I kind of laughed at him. I said, look, buddy, you can't intimidate me anymore. You're old, you're fat, you're decrepit, and you're broke. So you got something, bring it.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that whole thing that I said, he said to me, how do you know I'm broke? And I said, you aren't broke? He goes, well, maybe not. I said, well, that's interesting, because I've had people come to my door because I have the same first name as you, looking for you because you owe them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And now that you've told me you're not broke, and now that I have your address on this court paper, I know you want to do the right thing. So maybe I'll just hand that address off to those people that you owe money to. And he looked at me and he stood up. He goes, fuck it, just keep everything, and walked out. Okay. I'm making a comparison to Donald Trump. Donald Trump had a similar situation. The world is burning down around Donald Trump. He's got 91 felony charges. He's got his own people rolling on him. He's got a lawsuit. Yep. He's got a lawsuit that is going to break him. He's going to be totally broke. And he's got the world burning down around him. We've got the war in Israel, the war in Ukraine. We've got all this shit going on. And then he goes to Truth Social, and what does he bitch about? He bitches about Forbes dropping him from the top 400 richest people in the world. And he goes after him. That's the essence of a narcissist. Nothing else matters but how I'm perceived, how I look, how you believe me to be. And that's where the sickness is. He doesn't care about anything else, and that proves it.
Well, he was on trial for the rape case. He didn't show up to that trial.
No.
He didn't show up in a couple of court appearances for the criminal charges, but goddamn, he was there for those first 2 days when it came to his money. So, you know, and there with his hands got looking at the judge, and that's for the base. That's the fundraise. And he's going to keep doing that until a judge gets the balls to put something on him to where he can't do that anymore. He's gotten away with it so far, and people are like, well, what's it going to do to stop him? Somebody needs to slap that shit on him to where he's held accountable like me or you would be. I mean, we
Right.
did have that shit. We'd be in jail. And
Absolutely.
nobody is above the law, including the president. Nixon thought he was. Nixon was full of shit. And that's what I think they're using an old Nixon argument to say that, well, the president can, you might as well have a goddamn king or a dictator.
Right.
There's ridiculous to think the president is above the law.
Well, Donald Trump in that lawsuit showed up the first 2.5 days. I don't think it had to do with money, though. I think what happened is he sued Michael Cohen for $500 million. Mm-hmm. No way he was going to win that. But Michael Cohen said, okay, bitch, I'm going to fuck with you a little bit. I want to depose you. Now, the last thing he wants to do is be deposed by Michael Cohen or be deposed by anybody under oath. So he tried to make all these excuses, tried to delay and all that stuff. And then he finally said, well, I got to be in court for my lawsuit, so I can't possibly be deposed. So he goes to court for the first day and the second day. And by the third day, he's starting to get agitated because all this stuff that he can't distract from, divert from, spin, he can't control it. It's driving him nuts. His hands are moving, he's making faces, he's grunting. And then he just says, fuck it, I'm gone. And then he runs into a problem where, oh, you're gone now because your deposition was on October 9th. This is October 7th. So why don't you come down and do the deposition? And what's he do? He drops the lawsuit. He was just doing he was doing the lawsuit to try to be a bully and intimidate Michael Cohen because he's going to have to testify in these criminal cases. And he didn't want to do the deposition, so he just bailed on that fucking thing. And he looks weak doing this shit.
What I think I was trying to kind of get around to is that you can kind of see what's important to him. He wants, he doesn't seem to, I don't think it's hit him how important these criminal charges are. Joe Scarborough, actually, when he actually had a good point, what's going to get him is when he's going to be driving down Manhattan, if he's a free man, he's not going to see when they take that Trump off that building in downtown Manhattan and stuff. That's what's going to, I think that's what'll hit him too, is that it's about the money. I mean, he probably thinks that he'll get away with the criminal stuff. I don't think he realizes the shit he's in. I mean, like you said, it takes one thing to be held accountable, and knowing how, the picture of health he is, living another 40 years. I mean,
another 4 years.
4 years if lucky. But I mean, he's not what you call he is not what you call a handsome man or a healthy man.
He's not a physical. He's not a physical specimen like you or I. You and I will probably live to 140 because,
Oh, yeah.
My body is
we're in
temple.
much better shape. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the only thing about it is we don't put those posters out of us of like, being like the Conan or Captain America or whatever he is, because we're not, we're realists. We don't, he actually, and a lot of his people think he's that way, and he gets into a lot of that shit where he actually, like, there was something the other day about him being the greatest, like he could play football or something. And I'm like, and you look at something, go, this got to be a joke. And then I realize around here what I see. I mean, I saw a real nice truck the other day. I shit you not. Didn't have F Biden, nothing like that. It had Trump on the back of it. And it's like, you know what? I don't like myself enough to put my own goddamn name on the back of my vehicle, no less somebody else, and it's just like, there's something wrong. There's to fly a flag. I mean, there's one thing to put a sticker, on your vehicle or something. I get that. But to put a sticker that probably costs you a couple $100 to fly a $75 flag, I mean, there's just something wrong with that. That's just, it kind of goes beyond, we call it a cult, but man, it's just,
it's a mental illness.
I don't get it, man. It is.
I said 2 years ago, before Joe Biden took office, if you still support Donald Trump after all you've seen and heard, there's something mentally wrong with you. And maybe part of it is that these Trump-fucks don't get to see the things we do. And that goes back to what I've said about the media. The media tells different stories, and depending on what you get your stories from, that depends on what you know and what you don't know. And that's the unfortunate thing with the media. Now, we've got a lot of criminal cases ahead for Donald Trump, but I've said this lawsuit in New York with Letitia James may be the most devastating, the first shot across the bow that may take his legs out from underneath him, because as we talked about, it will take his property, his money, his power, and his prestige away from him. And that's all the things that Donald Trump identifies as: powerful, rich, having property.
Yeah.
But there was a witness that came in to the lawsuit on Tuesday, and that was Alan Weisselberg, the CFO of the Trump Organization. Now, Alan Weisselberg was convicted for tax fraud. He was in jail for 5 months. Trump Organization was convicted of 17 counts of fraud, and now he's testifying in this lawsuit. And he really doesn't have any choice but to testify, because after spending 5 months in Rikers Island and you're 75 years old, that makes you think, I don't want to do that again. Trump's a cool guy, but yeah, I'm not going to do that again. So when he was testifying, he said a couple of things. He said that he knew very well that when Donald Trump was taking his 10,000 square foot apartment and claiming it to be a 30,000 foot apartment, he knew that was fraudulent. He knows that Donald Trump knew it was fraudulent. And somebody said, why didn't you do something about it? He says, that's just one of many things. There was so much fraud and so much bullshit going on, it didn't even really click in my head. So when you've got your CFO of your company who's been convicted of fraud calling you out, Donald Trump does not have a fucking prayer. He is going to be a broke bitch, and that is going to destroy him emotionally.
Was there a one point on there where I think I read something, and maybe it was before, like when he first started, he said something that he valued his place at 3 times more, but that was an error. Did he say that? That I don't know if I read all kinds of shit. I mean, yeah, there's I don't know if you've seen it. You've seen the Breaking Bad. Have you ever seen Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul? Well, there's on Better Call Saul, his brother, Michael McKean, he was in like Laverne and Shirley, and he plays a lawyer where he's representing this big client, and his brother messed with him to where it was like 1916 Fountainwood, but he had it backwards, like 1619 Fountainwood.
Right.
And this is what it just brought back to me on Better Call Saul, is that they were in front of a judge, and they were doing something for a business taxes or something. Well, there was a mistake on the paperwork, and and of course Michael McKean's like, no, it's this, and then the owner's like, well, no, I know my own business, it's this. What that shows you right there is, like, you have these lawyers doing this stuff, and you have these, everybody, but you have all these eyes, paralegals, law clerks, everything reading over this stuff. So, for that guy, what's his name again? Was testifying against Trump today?
Alan Weisselberg.
To say that, like, oh, it's a mistake. There's so many eyes on this. And this goes much deeper than him and Trump to file this stuff. I mean, that's why they're going after this organization, because it's like people that work there that knew about this pretty much passed it through. Right. That's why they don't get to do business in New York. This isn't just a mistake. This is fraud. And there's a lawyer, Stormy Daniels, former lawyer, who I used to like until he turned out to be a creep, is there. He did the same thing.
Right.
Guess who's in jail?
Right.
Because he's not Donald Trump. And he did the same thing. I mean, when I go in and like do a loan for something, and I think I'm off maybe $100 to $1,000, you're like, okay, I worry about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, shit, I don't want them to come back and, well, you overestimated your earnings by a couple $100, which is nothing. That's just,
yeah.
there, but I mean, to triple time this stuff and to sign your name on this, and you just have less than half of the population, what, 30-40%, they're okay with this. I mean,
Well,
it's just like, oh yeah, I mean, he's a businessman. That's what they do. And it's like, no, it's not what business people do, not ethical ones.
no,
It
and
just,
last week they had this McConney guy on the witness stand, and he is the comptroller, and he
yep,
worked under Alan Weisselberg. And he specifically told the court that we regularly added a brand premium on it of 30 to 50%. That means if you've got $1 million property, just by virtue of the name Trump being associated with it, they would add 30 to 50% to the value. Now that sounds cool, but that's fucking illegal. That's
yeah,
absolutely fucking illegal. It's the definition of fraud. Just because you
a
put a
fraud.
name on it doesn't mean it's legal any more than when you send your taxes, you put a sticker on it that says, well, this shit may not all be right, but it's pretty
Right,
close. Just pass it
right.
through. They think if they have a disclaimer on their taxes that that's going to give them room to fucking lie. That's how ridiculous this is and how arrogant it is for Donald Trump and the people working for him. And all these people are going to say, well, Donald Trump made us do it. Yeah, but you were supposed to be the keepers of the gate.
Exactly.
You
That's
should
my
have said,
point.
no, we can't do that, but you were too afraid to stand up to Donald Trump. So now you put yourself in a criminal situation.
And what does he have on these people? Like, I mean, I don't think Mark Meadows is really, he's not one of my favorite people, but are you that damn stupid to do that stuff in Georgia to where you would, I mean, these people have given up their careers. Look, I mean, Michael Cohen, I mean, you're a lawyer. You got to have some sense to you, but I mean, even before he woke up, he did that crap. I just don't get it. People throw their lives. I mean, people go to jail for fraud with these elector things. I mean, and then they storm the Capitol. I mean,
Right.
is what does this man have that's the appeal of everybody? I mean,
I kind
it's
of
a
get it. I kind of get it. And I'll compare it to my father again and other people like my father. When you're a little kid and your dad has the tendency to get unhinged, yell and scream and say horrible things, or maybe even slap you, when that
yeah,
happens, you become, you get into a different mindset. All you want to do is
yes,
avoid
please.
that conflict. So you will do anything to make sure he doesn't do that. And granted, it's a different situation when you're an adult and you're in a working situation, but that's who Donald Trump is. He loses his shit. He makes threats. He says things that a normal person would regret. Of course, he never regrets it. And these people get so cowed by this unhinged, crazy behavior, they'll do anything just to keep it cool. And they think, well, Donald Trump's wealthy. He's got a long way with it this long. We'll be okay. I just don't want him to yell. And I really think that has a lot to do with it because he can't possibly have negative information on everybody he's ever known. It's a mental, a
Yeah,
psychological thing.
he's got something on Lindsey Graham. That's for God dang sure.
Well, that's a different story.
It's something. If you've ever read Mary Trump's book, she talks about that. How the dad her dad tried to get away from it, and he was, and Donald's dad was just overbearing, and it pretty much destroyed the man, made him alcoholic and stuff because of that. But I mean, and you look at Eric Trump, and I mean, his dad pretty much told him, "Well, I wasn't responsible; it's his." And what does
Yeah.
he do? He still sticks around his dad. I mean, I had a falling out with my father. Yeah, it took me a while, but I wasn't in my damn 40s and still cowering to him. I mean,
No,
it's like,
no.
I mean, I get the family doing it, but right now it looks like Ivanka may be the smartest one. Take $2 billion and run. Get away from daddy.
Yeah, I don't think she's out from the possible shade that's going to come on her. I think Jared and she have some issues that will present itself later on. I just, Donald Trump, ever since he's been born, because of his father, he's been in this power position. So everybody he deals with is kind of obliged to him. They either count on their job
Mm-hmm.
with him. Jeff McConney, the guy that I was talking about, the comptroller, I think his name is Jeff. They asked him, you knew what you were doing was wrong. Why did you do it? And he said, because I thought I was going to lose my job. That seems like a shitty reason, but we've all been in a situation where we have to pay our bills, feed our kids, do all this stuff. And sometimes it's easier to take the path of the least resistance, and that's keeping daddy happy. And I think that's what they do. I get to keep my job, I get to pay my bills, and it'll never happen because Donald Trump's never been caught before, up until the time he made that fateful decision of running for president and then winning the presidency. That is the absolute worst decision he's ever made. And he made it based on ego. I've always said ego is the one thing that'll bring every man down. If you let it get away from you, it will tear you to shreds.
It's I know why the Republican Party stands behind him, because Trump is that candidate that the Rush Limbaughs and Newt Gingriches were always looking for, the one to stand up and be that asshole that he is. Because I heard that all my whole life. Oh, we need somebody like Trump. He's that guy, and I will give Trump credit for one thing. The guy is resilient. Yeah. He's like a bad penny that keeps turning up. He will not go away. Hey, well, if Biden beats me, I'll go away. Then I have to lie about Biden beating me. But yeah, I can see why the GOP does that. Because, if they dump Trump, there goes most of their vote. You see the crap going on now with RFK Jr. going to be running as independent. They're losing their shit over that. What? No, he's a Democrat. No, he knew he couldn't do anything against Biden. So he runs as independent. That's going to take Trump voters away because he's more in line with Trump than he is Biden and Democrats.
Well, I think Donald Trump was the guy to be the president or be the leader of the Republican Party for one reason. The Republicans are in desperation mode. They're an antiquated party. They're archaic. There's too many young people coming up. Their policies are not popular. We've seen that. They know that they're hanging by a thread and they will grab anything. So the only way they can try to hang on is to get somebody like Donald Trump, lie, cheat, and steal. That's the only way they hang on. And after this whole situation, that's not going to work. They're going to try hard and they're going to make a mess of everything, but they're still going to fail. You mentioned RFK Jr. This is interesting. RFK Jr. runs as a Democrat, not because he's a Democrat, but because his father and uncle were famous for being Democrats. And he really thought he would give a challenge to Joe Biden. He quickly found out, no, I won't be able to challenge him. And everybody was worried about RFK costing Biden votes. And then he said he went independent. And still people on the left said, oh, he's going to cost us votes. That's not a good thing. But the Republicans know better. He's going to cost the Republicans votes because he has the conspiracy theories. He has the anti-vax shit. No Democrat's going to vote for that, especially if he's not a Democrat. But some Republicans might if they don't like the baggage that whoever the candidate is has. So they're right. Republicans should be worried about that motherfucker, and I don't think Democrats need to be.
And it's something, too, you're talking about the Republicans being in desperation mode. I'm a prime example of that. They lost me. You talk about somebody that, voted for a lot of Republicans, told listen to the Rush Limbaugh, did that stuff. But and you look at the demographic here, what are Republicans? Mostly older white males. Well, you got two of them right here. And guess what? We're not voting Republican. So, we're a prime example of that. I actually had to go to a funeral this past week for a cousin of mine. And we were real close at one time, but the politics and the religion kind of got in the way. So I, kind of stayed away, and they were anti-vaxxers. And I was down there, and I was in, South Texas, and my mom has a little Corolla. I let her borrow my car because she had a reunion to go to. So I drove down there. Here I am in a Toyota Corolla, real small thing. And all these big trucks with the MAGA stickers and, stuff on there. And I looked around there, and you know, when you're in a funeral, you do a lot of self-reflection. Because I remember at one time when I was younger, I mean, the first person I ever voted for was Bill Clinton.
Right.
And I remember I went through my conservative phase, but here we are, you know, 40 years later, I'm back to, you know, who I voted for Hillary, you know, I voted for Biden, you know, and it was like, you know, and the whole cowboy hat thing, I tried that for a while, but it's like, you know what, as time goes by and look at it, I am just a progressive rock and roller. I am nothing like those people.
Right.
And I can go there, I can pay my respects. You know, I got up and I said a few things, and you know, Mike, part of me wanted to go Biden 2024, you know, and I probably would have, you know, you
Well,
probably would never seen me again, but you have to have a sense of humor with these things.
yeah, you do. And the thing is if you look at either one of us, you know, that's the whole premise behind Rational Boomer. I don't look like somebody who would
Yeah,
be more progressive. So it's kind of a contradiction. But what do you think it is? I know what it is. The separation between two white guys like you and I that should be prime candidates for being a Republican or even a Trump-la-fuck, but we're not.
exactly.
What's the difference
Exactly.
between us and those people that are? What do you think?
We don't, I think that we're not about the party, we're about the person. You know, is Biden my favorite guy? No. When they had the Texas primary down here, I didn't vote for him. I voted for Bloomberg.
Right.
I
Well,
mean, but when he gets to run, we don't say I'm a Republican all my life, I'm going to vote Republican. I'm a
right.
Democrat all my life. No, I'm voting for the person who I think will do better leading this country. And I knew that, you know, that's why I voted for Hillary over Trump, because I knew Trump is just not. He's not capable of doing it. I mean, the
No,
pandemic proved that. He was in over his head.
I'm gonna be a little more crass about it. The difference between you and I and other Trump-la-fucks, we're not fucking stupid. Because that's the only way to explain it. You
That's true.
can't see the things you see, hear the things you hear, and still support somebody like that. You are either part of the problem or just as evil, or you're stupid. And like I've said, I like to be a guy that's half glass full. So I'll have to say you're stupid if you do that. That can only be the answer to it. And unfortunately, since Donald Trump has come into office, um, I was surprised and disappointed and dismayed at the number of dumb people we have in this country. We have an epidemic of dumb people in this country, and it's frightening. I mean, I'd rather deal with a smart, evil guy because I can at least deal on the same level and figure him out. Dumb people, you can tell them the facts and they go, nope, that's not it. What do you do with that? They don't
Yeah.
listen to reason or facts. You can't even debate with the motherfuckers.
And I think that's what my whole thing about, you know, the self-reflection is I'm nothing like these people. I mean, I'm just, and I think that's why, you know, I've asked 2 or 3 times in the show, what is it about the man? Because like I said, I'm at a total loss. And, you know, and these people and some people, you know, you say they're dumb, you know, and I agree with you on that, but they're not like I mean, they're completely stupid. I mean, I know some quote unquote smart people, but obviously they have no common sense. You can have all the book smarts in the world,
Right,
but
right.
when I argue with somebody and they tell me to my face that he didn't say to inhale bleach, and I go, he did. And he goes, well, how'd you hear that? I go, I watched him say it. No, you didn't. I mean, it's like, yes, I did, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, and and I think you kind of have, you know, closure on stuff because you realize we can do shows like this and talk to like-minded people. You know, we're not going to always, you know, connect with those other people and just
No,
argue with stuff. That's why you don't have any Trump fucks coming on the show
no.
because they don't have an argument. They have nothing of substance. And when you talk to these people, you know, you just hear about how Biden is. We'll name me an example. And it's like, well, Hunter. It's like, well, no, I didn't vote for Hunter. Oh, it's like, well, what did Trump do? Like I think you were saying, what did Trump do an accomplishment? Well, he did this, and then, well, he had the pandemic. I go, yeah, and he could have done great things with that pandemic as president. Not great thing. I mean, he could have shown great leadership. Let me say that.
Right,
I
right.
try to say he could have stepped up and done it. But when you hear him talking to Woodward and those tapes, I mean, it's like, oh, we were doing great until the pandemic came. And you know what? Right now, he's got low poll numbers that they don't mean shit. He's not the most popular guy. But you know who's doing, you know who's still doing his job and not worrying about that? I mean, he gave, it's Biden. That's why we have him in there, because he's not worried what TMZ's saying about him. He's not worried about, Trump wants all the perks of being president, but he doesn't want to do the job.
No, he doesn't want to do the work. He loves the idea of being royalty and being driven around and bowed to and patted on the back and complimented. He loves all that. Everything about him is performative. He doesn't put any work into anything. The best you can ever hope for is that he has people around him that do the work so that later he can take the credit. That's all he does. He doesn't fucking accomplish anything on his own.
That's why he won't be Speaker of the House. That's exactly why. Because that takes job to do. You got to work.
There's no way.
He don't want to do that.
There's no way.
No, he won't win.
He couldn't win, and he wouldn't take it anyway. No. Do you honestly believe he'd take a demotion? I don't think so. He'll talk shit.
Well, there's that.
What's that?
There's reports coming out. I don't know how true they are, but he was real serious about running in January. And there was reports too that his camp was pretty pissed off that the Republican Jordan's camp admitted that, or let out that he was doing the endorsement. Yeah, he came out later and said it, but they said they were taken aback, because it's like what you go back to what you said, Mike. Trump doesn't think about the future. Oh God, I got to go there. I got to work. He thinks about the now. Yeah, I'll say I'll run for speaker. Yeah. But he doesn't think about all the job that, say what you want to about Kevin McCarthy. That son of a bitch was running around with his head cut off. He was busy.
Yeah.
The Democrats saved him twice, and he goes back and cuts them down. And I don't think they can get a speaker. And I know that Trump couldn't get the votes.
No.
If Kevin McCarthy can't get the votes, those 9, there's no way moderates would vote for Trump.
Well, what people
or Jim Jordan, I don't think him either.
No, none of them can get the votes. The only thing they can do is they're going to have to deal with the Democrats. And I know they don't want to do that, but that's the only way this is going to get done. But what people don't remember is back in January when they were looking for a Speaker of the House and Donald Trump's name was bandied about. A lot of people don't remember that Matt Gaetz actually nominated Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. He was included in the votes. And you know how many votes he got? One. From Matt Gaetz. He got one. They did it twice. He got 1 vote each time. And that embarrassed the piss out of Donald Trump. So that's sticking in his craw right now. But he can't get the votes. Nobody, at this point, the Republicans want to be so far away from that motherfucker, they can taste it. Even though they don't admit it in public, they don't want him anywhere near them because he is a pariah at this point.
That's just more the media, like with the Biden poll numbers. Well, Trump to be Speaker of the House. They want to get people riled up. It all goes back to, the media has become like WWE. Right. It's become, this guy may come and slap your child in the front row. It's scare tactics, and I don't think he'd get it, and I knew he wouldn't get it, but
No, he won't. I tell you what, Jace, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Jace from Texas is joining me, a listener of the Rational Boomer podcast. And we've been talking about general things. You're hearing this. As you're hearing this, I'm in Portland, Maine. I'm not sure what my situation. I'm going to have the equipment down there to do it, but I'm not sure how it's all going to work out. So I want to make sure there's a Rational Boomer podcast, and Jace has been gracious enough to join me on the show, and I appreciate it very much. Jace, the next thing we wanted to talk about, and you had a question too, and I'm anxious to hear it. It's regarding the criminal case in Washington, D.C. With all this shit flying around, wars in Israel and Ukraine and civil lawsuits and all that stuff, it's real easy to forget about other things that are pretty important. And that court case in Washington, D.C. with Judge Chutkan is coming up. and we know on October 16th, there's going to be a meeting between the prosecution, the defense, and Judge Chutkin. And this meeting is really there to talk about Donald Trump's behavior. And it's about fucking time because, they keep telling him, don't do this, but he insists on continuing to fucking do it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on the 16th if Judge Chutkin does what we've expected her to do and kind of clamp down on Donald Trump. And that's just coming up in a few days. So that should be interesting. But you had a question that you wanted to ask too.
Yeah, I've heard you say this about kind of the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Jim Jordans, people of Congress that may have been involved with the January 6th. Well, I guess they really were.
Yeah.
I mean, there's evidence they were. What gives you, what makes you think that they're actually going to be charged? I mean, I know that, he's brought, more charges, Jack Smith has. What gives you the idea that they're going to actually be charged? I mean, is there something you read? You just reading it? I mean, what gives you that idea?
Well, Jace, I'm a psychic. No, I'm kidding. Jack Smith is as much as insinuated that there will be superseding indictments coming. I mean, there has to be when you're looking at the insurrection. The only person he's indicted regarding January 6th, the only person he's indicted is Donald Trump. And he did that for a very specific reason. He didn't want too much complexities around Donald Trump. He wanted to be able to focus on him because that's the one defendant that is time sensitive. They got to get this done before the election in 2024. Yeah. So when you have something as big as the January 6th insurrection and only one person's indicted, something else is coming. Some other people are coming. And who might that be? It will be fake electors probably. But at the federal level, it's going to be more about those people that organize the fake electors. The fake electors are getting hit in state court because they're in that state. But as the DOJ handles anything, they move from the bottom to the top. And the top would be those people that organized. People like Ginny Thomas, maybe Roger Stone, members of Congress. The members of Congress are culpable. There's a lot of evidence. We've talked about Jim Jordan. There has been at least a few occasions or proof that he spoke to Donald Trump on January 6th. There was a conversation too where Jim Jordan talked to him for about 10 minutes. And then after that 10-minute conversation, he went right to the floor to tell the people, the Republicans, to not certify the election. Now, do they have information about the actual conversation? I think they might. There's a lot of people rolling on Donald Trump. These people in Congress, I don't know if it's 2 of them or 10 of them. I don't know what it is. But there are going to be some people in Congress that get hit because they were the linchpins in this January 6th thing. Without those members of Congress, this couldn't have happened. So, part of it is a guess, part of it is logic, but I don't know how they can't indict sitting members of Congress. And there might be other prosecutors that are afraid to indict sitting members of Congress. I don't think that's Jack Smith. I don't think he's fucking scared at all. He's going to take them all down one by one.
Let me ask you this. They did that with the House, did they have to certify the votes and then it goes to the Senate, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Like when the electors and stuff, they have to do it in Senate. So maybe Jack Smith thinks he has to indict these members of Congress because what's going to stop them in 2024? They have the House now. They didn't have the House back then. What if they try this shit again in 2024 or 2023 going into 2024 going into 2025?
Well, exactly. And it's more than just preventative. I mean, prevention is probably part of it. But these people were on the phones with Oath Keepers. We're on the phones with Proud Boys. were walking with Proud Boys
Yep.
and talking with Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Keep in mind, those Oath Keepers and those Proud Boys were convicted of seditious conspiracy. You can't have a conspiracy
Yep.
unless there's more than one people.
Without it.
And you can't have a conspiracy unless there's somebody to coordinate this. The Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys couldn't do what they did unless they had some fucking help. And Jack Smith, I'm certain, knows that, and he's already dug out the information on who helped and how helped. In fact, there's a story out. They were saying they didn't give the information as to what it was, but they were saying that Jack Smith has already figured out why Donald Trump took all the documents. He has a motive for it. So that's interesting. We don't know what that is. But if he has that kind of information on the documents, you know he's got some deep, deep information. Remember, on January 6th, when it happened, the FBI grabbed all the phones in Washington, in the Capitol area on that day, everybody's phone. So there's a lot of information there. People talking to other people, people talking to the Oath Keepers. I don't think there's any way they don't prosecute some members of Congress, and I think they know that.
Okay, that makes sense now. And speaking of the documents case, looks like that judge, was it Cannon, gave him the delay he was looking for. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, when it was the documents case, and that was the only case up there, we were all worried, oh, what happens if that happens? What happens if they delay it? It goes past the 2024 election. I care a lot less about that particular trial. That trial's going to happen. And he's going to lose. There's just no question about it. But there's so much other shit that's more imminent. And like we said, it doesn't take much to take him out of the equation quickly. So by the time we get to that documents thing, he may be a puddle of fucking oil.
I think one of the DC, the judge, I think what she's going to do that, you know, I haven't really heard people pretty much talking about. They're all talking about putting sanction on him, but didn't she threaten to move the trial up? I can see her doing that. She's getting tired of his bullshit and moving it up.
She could do that.
I can see her. I can see her doing that. She's getting tired of that shit. You know, you're not going to shut up. So hey, we're going to move up a couple months. I mean, that would be great.
When she talks to these guys on the 16th, she's going to have to lay down some hard and fast rules, because whatever she said the first time, he didn't listen to shit. Even Donald Trump's own people said he's going to keep doing it until you stop him. And I have a feeling that when they sit down that day, she's not going to throw him in jail that day. Finding him doesn't do any good because he just doesn't pay it. But I've said this before. I think what she's going to do is try to cover her ass a little bit and say, listen, I've told you not to do this. I only have so many options if you continue to do this. And the main option, maybe the only option I have, is to put you in jail. So just, you're on notice now. If you do it one more time, no questions asked, you're going to jail. And then if Donald Trump goes to jail, you can't blame the judge. You're going to have to blame Donald Trump. Whether that will work or not, I don't fucking know. But she's got to do something. She's got to be tougher. And she's got to make this fucking clown accountable. Not just because he's being disrespectful to the court and the judge and the prosecutors and stuff, but what he's doing is absolutely dangerous to this country. It's fucking really dangerous to this country. And it's the judge's job to stop that shit. She has the power to do it. And if she doesn't do it, that's going to cause her more problems than if she does put Donald Trump in jail. She's worried about, you know, the issues of putting a former president in jail. Well, the alternative may be fucking worse.
You know, I hear these people tell me, well, it's both sides. Both sides are the same. Both sides are the problem. That's bullshit, because you have two different presidents in two different document cases. You got one that hit them in the toilet, but you got another one that sit there and talk to the special prosecutor and didn't back down. You know who that was? That was Joe Biden.
Exactly.
But
And
you
Joe
know,
Biden will be cleared from this because he
he
didn't do
wasn't.
anything.
Yes, yeah. But you have, you know, it's the same people that deny the Trump documents not meaning anything are so sure what Biden had is 20 times worse. It's like, you know, your boy has all these charges over here, and you want us to disregard there, but the couple that Biden has that were probably a mistake. That wasn't that back when he was vice president. My God, how many people have you ever left work with a pen in your hand or your pocket or something, but not the launch codes like some of them had? I mean, it's probably nothing.
No, it's probably
And
nothing.
it is probably nothing. But they want they have that little bit of hope. Like I have a coworker, and she just told me, it's like, God, I just wish they'd get Biden on something. And that's what it is. They don't care what it is, but it pisses them off that they can't get him on nothing. I'm not saying Biden's a saint. He ain't no saint.
No,
But you
no.
know, you know, it's ridiculous. I just wish I could get him on something. I don't feel that way about Trump. You know, hey, I just wish son of a bitch would go away. But if he
Right.
broke the law, he needs to be prosecuted. Same thing with Biden. They're no different than us.
Well, it's funny
Well, to
when
me
you
anyway.
yeah, when you listen to Donald Trump and then you listen to all these people making these claims, I'll ask them, how do you know that? Well, it's a fact. Just do your research. The only reason they know these
Oh
crazy
yeah,
fucking ideas is because they heard it from Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who is a known
or Fox.
pathological liar. That's your source. They're like children. If I said, Jace, you're a poopy butt, and you say, no, you're a poopy butt, that's exactly what it's like. It's fucking
Oh yeah,
childish. You know, they'll just pull out of their ass. You know, it's like children. If you said, you know, I broke a window, and I go, oh yeah, but 2 months ago he broke a door. It's just that's that's just the childish behavior of these fucks. And that's why they're not, maybe I shouldn't say they're stupid, but they're certainly immature as fuck.
yeah. You know, you talk about the you know the National Republican Party, but there's quite a war going on down here in Texas in the Republicans. It's pretty interesting to watch. Old Paxton, who you know got off on his charges, he's threatening to file a lawsuit because his information was posted for everybody to see. And it's and the guy, one of the guys that was a prosecutor, is like, well, that's public record. You know, you can try to sue, but that shit's not. That's public record. That was misdeeds you did.
Right, right.
And there's a big between the House that voted to impeach him and then the Senate that acquitted him. They have Greg Abbott has a special session going on right now. You know, he passed all these, you know, things to give everybody taxes, you know, to not make sure we have any revenue in the system. But he didn't fund schools and he didn't give teacher raises. So he wants to do like what Oklahoma's done, and they want to give vouchers. Well, it has to go through both houses, as you know, to get anything done.
Right.
Well, Greg Abbott said, well, if it doesn't pass the first time, we'll call another session. And if it doesn't pass that, we'll let the voters decide. Why don't you let the voters decide now?
Yeah.
Because he knows it's unpopular, and he's full of shit on that because you have a lot of Republicans that are against it. And this stuff, and the Senate and Paxton can be all pissed off about, you know, them going after him. There's a lot of people in the House that are pissed off that the Senate let him off. And a lot of the Senate let him off because, well, I don't want to be the one that, you know, does that, because he knew Paxton would go for it. So instead of doing the right thing, they're worried about the blowback. I
Right.
mean, that's why you can't have career politicians. And there's one other thing I'm going to say about Texas. There's some Republicans that are in bed. I don't know who was that white nationalist that Trump was talking to. Who was that? That when Kanye introduced him or something, he's got some. I forget his name. He's a 25-year-old Nazi.
Yeah, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Well, there that he sponsored a dinner with some booster or somebody who ended up giving money to our lovely Dan Patrick, who presided over Ken Paxton's trial, even though he got money. Well, he got some money, and it came out. The House Speaker said something about it, and I thought was real telling. And I know better. And I mean, I didn't believe the guy, but you look at Republicans, it's like they don't deny it anymore.
Oh no.
They just say they said no. He needs to resign for bringing that up. I mean, it's like if you just pay attention, they don't deny it. Well, no, you saying that, you need to resign. I mean, it's like before you found out a politician, Democrat or Republican, I got some money from a Nazi. I don't want that money.
Right. Well, that's so
They're
typical
not
of
giving it back now. They're
that's
not
so
giving it back now.
that's so typical of Republicans, though.
Yep.
If you had a Republican murder somebody and that came out in the news, the Republicans would say, "You got to get the fucking leaker. That's illegal. Disregard the crime, but the leaker."
Exactly.
It's absolutely ridiculous, and half the time it's public information, and they still say somebody leaked the shit. You brought up Paxton, and just to remind folks who aren't familiar with Texas, Ken Paxton is the Attorney General of Texas. He is probably the most corrupt motherfucker in this country, at least on a state level. There is no question about it. He is one of the slimiest pieces of shit. He got impeached by the House in Texas. And this is just like a presidential impeachment. You go through the impeachment in the House, and then you go to the Senate, and they decide whether you're kicked out or convicted or whatever. And of course, he went to the Senate, and I won't say he was acquitted. I don't know if that's the term, but he wasn't kicked out. We know Texas is Republican, but with gerrymandering and all that stuff, I'm not convinced that the majority of people are really Trump humping fucking idiots. I think there's a lot of good people in there. Just walking the streets,
they don't
talking
vote.
to people. Yeah, that's probably true. But the people you talk to on the street that aren't your typical Trump humpers, do they have any opinion about Attorney General Paxton, or they just don't care?
No, the people I talk to, I talk to different people, and it's so funny is when they just think that I always hear, well, Hunter Biden, and I'm like, well, I won't vote for him again then if that's the point. But it's like, it's like what Hunter Biden did is worse than anything Trump could ever thought about doing. That's the general mentality of people. But people that are Republican, or this is what I hear. Oh, Paxton, well, no, they all do it. Okay, they all do it. And then when you try to tell somebody, we hear about how bad the country is. And I go, well, Texas shut down a couple of years ago because, we're not on a grid. Bo Biden didn't pull the plug on that because we're not on the national grid. And then you have to remind them that, the Republicans are in charge. Then you see Ken Paxton on there when he's going through this stuff, telling the media, and the media doesn't throw anything back at him. So you think the Democrats run this state? Oh, definitely. I don't know any Democrat that does this. I don't think a Democrat could tie a shoe without a Republican's permission down here.
Right.
I mean, they got the people that they're so into the R next to the person, and that the D next to the person means you're evil, that they just, they won't even give them a chance. That's why Texas, besides the gerrymandering, has stayed red, because people that maybe necessarily believe in a Paxton, they lost people in the freeze. They'll vote for him. Well, Abbott's a Republican. You look at Uvalde. It went overwhelmingly for Abbott. I mean, how? I mean,
it's truly amazing. You brought up the grid thing, the electrical grid. And for people who don't know, most of the country is on two separate huge grids, which means it's much more stable and stronger. Texas thought better of it. They found a way they can grift and make money off their own little grid. So Texas is on their own grid, and they went through some shit when the grid failed. Now, I'm hearing that we're going to get an El Nino this year too, and that could mean some very cold weather down in Texas. And last time you had really cold weather, unseasonably cold weather, that's when the grid failed. Do people worry about that, or do they just believe what the Republicans saying? No, we're good. This is the best way to do it.
Well, Abbott won re-election, didn't he?
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
I can't think of somebody else who was more responsible. It's funny when you have these Republicans, and I get them on this too, when they talk about, well, we're not California, we're not, they always throw up the thing about the homeless in like San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I tell them that, I go, you can go through parts of Texas, people aren't homeless, but goddamn, they might as well be. They have a
Yeah.
shack above them.
Right.
They have, I guess, and I lived in Missouri too, one of the poorest states too. And it's like I keep telling them, well, why do you think California and New York pay so many taxes? Because they're funding the rest of the country.
Right.
Why do people leave California? Why do they live north to come down here? They don't want to pay taxes, and I get that. But it the thing about it is that you tell people about this, and when they talk about the California thing, and they talk about, well, we're still dependent on, foreign oil, but nobody wants to have an electric car. We don't put the money in it to make, well, we don't have it's not there yet. Yeah, because we don't put the money into it. Every time we try to do that, the big oil get into that. That's why we still have to worry about Saudi Arabia raiding passes, because we don't progress going further with the technology. In Texas, what saved our ass, and what will probably save our ass this summer, this winter, you go down to the coast down there, and one of the biggest Republicans in Texas was T.J. Pickens, I think, T-Bone Pickens, I think was his name.
Right. Right.
It's called wind power. Wind power. You have these big windmills down there, and they say and when we had those days where we were reaching a limit, you know why we had those days where we were almost at our limit? Because the wind wasn't blowing. When the wind blows, you get plenty of power. That's what the windmills do. That's what saved this state. So you can talk about California and you're Texan. If it wasn't for the wind, and solar, I guess too, but not the grid. It wasn't the grid. But there was a lot of stuff to where they're having to do this maintenance on some of those windmills, and that's why they had some of the problems they had. So it ain't the grid keeping it up. It's the modern, wind that's saving the
green
ass for
energy.
Texas. But exact green. That's what I was trying to say. Green.
Yeah. Well, that's ironic that they would use windmills, because we know for a fact from the Lord and Savior himself, Donald Trump, that windmills cause cancer and kill whales. So why would they do that?
Oh, God.
You don't care about whales and cancer? What the fuck?
Yeah, it's funny. There's just so much shit. I mean, this stuff just writes itself. I mean, it's windmills. I mean, we got to call him not Donald Trump, Donald Quixote. Who's the guy that attacked the windmills? Remember the guy, that old story? I saw a meme on I don't know, Twitter or Facebook or something. And it was like a whale impaled by a wind. I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I don't know. The man that tells you to drink bleach, man. I mean, I guess he knows more than I do. I don't know, man. I give up. But yeah, it's green energy that saved this. But what do the Republicans do? They don't want to fund it because big oil owns them. That's another thing that owns them.
I tell people that I feel like the vibe of this whole political thing has kind of turned the corner, and all the things that benefited Donald Trump and the Republican Party are just taking a shit now, and we're headed the right way. I know everybody wants it to be fixed and normal today, but we spent a lot of time getting out of that, or going down this hole. It's going to take us a little while to get out of it, but we got to keep trending the right way.
And I think the older generations, as they pass along, it's like you had an email the other day from one of your listeners that were talking about how they got that poll and they were able to say, yeah, I'm a Republican, and finish the poll, and no, I'm not a Republican. Those polls, I mean, I know a lot of millennials and younger people, they don't have landlines, for one thing. A lot of polls are still done that way, and a lot of them, they don't. I get texts all the time. I used to get texts from Will Hurd. I got texts from Trump and Trump campaign, and I would write back, "Are you kidding?" And it's like they don't they send you a text, but you know, the people while they're polling are the people that respond. The people that
Right.
don't have any life are the people that are Republican. They who that polled to do it. And you're right. I mean, it's like 2022. I mean, that's how I got to know you, because you were on there. You were about the only one saying, no, no, I do my research on this. I mean, and you got me there, because I was scared, because I mean, if we had the Republican, if we had the, can you imagine if we had a red wave? God, man,
We'd
the
be in
default
trouble
would have
right now.
happened. I, I mean, we would be a third world country, bro. I mean, the lights would probably be off. You know, we'd probably have Texas power grid running the whole nation.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that a red wave um, would have been disastrous for this country. And you know, as much as I look at the facts
Oh yeah.
and such, I think that there's part of me that thinks it's kind of destiny. You have these bad times, and we always come out of it. Like I say, if you grew up in the 60s at all, you knew it was pretty bad then too, almost maybe worse than it is now. And people felt the same way. I was young at the time, but we'll never get away from this. We got the hippies, we got the war, we got Richard Nixon. This will never get better. But then as we got later in the 70s, it all kind of settled down and we had other issues, but not like we did in the 60s. I'm a firm believer that whatever we're going through now will bring us out on the other side, and we'll probably be better for it. We will have learned some things. Um, we will have young people making decisions, and they should be making the decisions. I mean, it's their future. It's not my future. I won't be here for that future, but if they are critical enough of a critical thinkers, they will see the possible disasters that the Republicans have in store for them, and they will want to fucking change it. It's just, I just don't see it going Republicans' way anymore. They're going to keep losing ground. It may take longer than you want, but they're going to go away.
And you look, and I think a lot of people feel that way, because I think the Republicans have won the narrative as the economy being bad,
Right.
and people not, I mean, it's not true. They had a
No.
jobs report the other day, and it's like, that's why they can't really control inflation, because the job department, you know, only in America would a job growth fuck up inflation. You know, I mean, what kind of economics is that shit?
Yeah, there's
But
something wrong there.
you have people, they ask people this question, is like, well, yeah, I'm happy with my job, I'm confident in my job, but I don't think the economy is good. Usually they would go hand in hand. But you have this, and I think that's why Kevin McCarthy was such a good fundraiser, because he got out in that debt thing. He kind of, I don't think he made Biden look bad, but the media portrayed it like he did, like Biden wasn't ready.
Mhm.
And, you know, well, Kevin McCarthy got out here because Kevin, I mean, people can raise, I mean, you look at televangelists. Yeah, they raise a lot of money too, because they do fear tactics.
Right.
Maybe Biden is not exactly the most popular, because he's the kind of the old grandfather or uncle that tells you how it is. He doesn't tell you what you want to hear. You know, you know, they blame him from everything from, you know, freaking the border to, you know, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce breaking up.
They
I mean,
didn't
they
break
blame
up.
Biden for
Don't tell me they
every.
broke up. I'll be heartbroken if they
they,
break up.
but yeah, and that's another thing that the right's going after. They're going after her, and they're going after Travis, because Travis, my God, did a COVID commercial and did a Bud Light commercial, and it's like, you know, and Taylor scares them because she's going to endorse Biden, you know, and she got all those people to register to vote. They are fucking scared of her, and that's why they vilify her. They always have, when they vilify somebody, they always have a motive. You
Right.
know, it's nothing by accident. They're, you know, they're the most woke fucking people they are. But Biden is the one that, you know, he talks to you. He ain't the most personal guy. You know, he's kind of that guy. He's kind of hard to understand. He's got a stutter. And I think Biden's biggest thing is people are afraid of his age, because that's something the Republicans are saying. Because, you know, Trump's like 20 years younger, of course.
Right.
But it's just the constant lying. I mean, my God, Fox, there was somebody on Fox today saying that, you know, this happened to Israel because, you know, Biden hasn't gotten people appointed. Well, last time I fucking checked, that was that dumb fucking Alabama, Tuberville holding that shit up. That
Yeah.
wasn't Biden.
Yeah. It was
I think
absolutely
even Fox
Tuberville.
pushed back on that.
Yeah. It is
But
definitely
what they do is
Tuberville.
they put that little earworm out there, and they don't. But they put that little earworm out there, and people hear that, and that's why it's like. But I ultimately think you're right. It's destiny because, yeah, you may not like Biden, you may like this stuff, but are you going to vote for a guy that has 91 felonies? Because it's like you said, he lost big time, and people don't talk about that, and they
Right.
always underestimate Joe Biden. And he won big in 2022, and when it comes down to it, do I trust this guy that has been calm these last 4 years? And no, I think people when they're there, unless you're just really stupid. I mean, and like you don't think Trump's going to be the runner. I'm starting to believe you're right because I think it's calling in on him. But I don't think there's a Republican that can beat Biden. Look at that big. I mean, we don't talk about polls, but New Hampshire had that big thing where he was ahead by like 11 points.
Right. Well,
I mean, there's always the state poll. State polls are kind of easier to believe than the national polls. So
yeah, I don't think there is any Republican that can beat Joe Biden. But I take it a step farther. Given all that's going on, the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the gun things, and I'll say this: there is no Republican today that can beat any Democrat in the presidential election, even if it's not Joe Biden, even if it's Kamala, even if it's whoever
I
the
agree.
fuck. I don't think any Republican can beat them, especially if they start spewing the same shit that Donald Trump spews. And I think it's starting to hit
We
home
talked
with
about
Donald Trump.
RFK.
I think it's hitting home with Donald Trump and the Republicans. They're finally feeling the losses starting to hit them. You can only talk around and divert from so much shit. Everything's coming from all directions, and it's going to bury all of them ultimately.
And I think that you're seeing that also with West. He's going to run as an independent as well. He's not running in the Green Party. I mean, when you don't run in a major party like that, you're not going to do well. So, I mean, it's going to be minuscule what they take away. I was pleasantly surprised, I must admit, before I started listening to you that Biden won. I thought he would, but the Republicans are louder, but it doesn't mean they're right.
No, especially
You
when
can be
people
the
are
loudest one in
suffering.
the room. Yeah.
The way
Yeah,
people are
exactly.
suffering and getting rights taken away from them. Cornel West and RFK Jr., people are worried about them. I'm not convinced they'll be there in 2024 in November either, because it takes money. Where are they going to get the money from? They're not going to get it from Democrats. They're not going to get it from Republicans. Cornel West isn't out there. I mean, he may be a very smart guy, but he doesn't have the pop to do this. He's just kind of there.
Yeah.
I think Cornel West and RFK will end up like Joe Manchin and whoever the fuck else that guy was. Remember they had that third party thing and Joe Manchin was maybe going to run and this guy, and it was it's scary. They fucking faded away. And these two will fade away too because they won't have the money.
Neither party likes Joe Manchin because you know why? Joe Manchin's in it for himself. He could give a shit.
Right.
And the only reason he's not thinking about running for the Senate is because he's about to lose.
Well,
I see that run going red because
when's the last guy who had a third party that actually made it to the 2024 elections that legitimately was kind of in the mix? What was his name? Little squeaky guy, little skinny guy.
you're not talking about Ross Perot, are you?
Yeah, he was the last third
Not
party that
Ross
made any.
Perot?
He was the last third party candidate that made any fucking noise. And he only did that because he was a billionaire and he could afford to do it. These two aren't billionaires. They can't afford to do it.
Oh no, come on. Trump's the most billionaire ever. You know, he's the richest man ever walked the fucking earth, Mike. Come on.
What I don't understand is with Trump, if he's a billionaire, how come his taxes show him only losing money and not making money? How is that possible? I mean, he's not losing 100,000. He's losing $500 million. or $1 billion over a period of time. This guy has been nothing but a loser from the word start, and he's been bailed out by his dad, by the Russians, by Saudi Arabia, whoever the fuck it is. Whatever he did, he had to be bailed out of because he failed every time. But they found him to be a useful idiot. So it was worth it to them to keep him alive because they could manipulate him. As a narcissist, they're easy to manipulate. All you have to do is pat them on the head and tell them they're geniuses, and they'll do whatever the fuck you want. And that's what Donald Trump has done. And that's why he's in trouble now, because he doesn't have any common sense. He just goes with whoever likes him. I mean, honest to God, if Joe Biden said, Donald Trump's really not a bad guy, he's a smart guy, he would be on Biden's train. He's that stupid. You don't have to do anything but pat him on the butt.
Have you seen that? There's a TikTok out there. It's this old Western about some grifter that would go through town and almost like a snake oil salesman. I remember that. And you know what the guy's name was? Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing that. So this cannot be real, but it's real. It's some movie or TV show about some guy that just fooled people. But you kind of think about it, Mike. We've always had these people. The Jim Jones with the Kool-Aid, and I mean, you've always had that happen. And the Manson stuff. I mean, but I think the Trump. I mean, I think we didn't realize the power of not thinking. You talk about positive thinking, of not thinking, and I think with social media, it just highlights that how rampant it is out there. I mean, I think, like you said, it's kind of getting better because I think a lot of those people are dying off. But a lot of people like the asshole, and there's a lot of assholes that are popular. And when I used to watch wrestling, I love the bad guys. I mean, people like a bad guy, and
yeah, people like winners. And if somebody talks like a winner, whether they are or not, they will jump on board. It's amazing to me what people will believe. When I've been on TikTok or whatever, it's really interesting to see what TikToks I get that get the most views. Now, if I'm just talking like this, I'll get a lot of views, and that's great. But if I'm really wound up about something and I swear a little and I talk loud or say something crazy or something funny, fucking views go up like crazy. People want that. So if people want that, it's okay, as long as that person who's doing that is telling the truth and doing something right. So you get somebody who lies and whatever and understands that people get caught up in the enthusiasm of it all, and they use it to their advantage and to the detriment of the people. There are just some unscrupulous motherfuckers like Donald Trump or like Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell, he's just a hapless fuck. He's done. And it's what I love about him. He's going bankrupt. His company's failing. His lawyers quit on him. And I want to look at him and say, who knew? If only somebody could have warned you about this. When of course, anybody with any business sense could look at that and say, yeah, I maybe should back out of this. I got to keep my company safe. He didn't do it. I don't feel sorry for the guy because he asked for it.
Nope, I don't either, man. They say you go to bed with dogs, you wake up with fleas. I mean, I love dogs. My dogs sleep with me, so I don't have any fleas, but you play with snakes, you're going to get bit.
Yeah, no question. No question. Do you think, now they're saying this lawsuit case could go 2 to 3 months. So we're just early on in it. More and more things are going to come out, like what I talked about with Alan Weisselberg the other day. Do you think Donald Trump's going to be able to keep his mouth shut? I don't think so. I think he's going to kill himself by just yapping. And I think he's getting nervous. He's starting to flail. And if he hasn't lost,
but he's going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But he's going to keep doing it until somebody does something about it. You know, you can threaten all you want to, but I mean, there's got to be a judge that's going to go up there and go enough. But, you know, and it's like, well, you know, it could be real political. I mean, look at the crap now. It's political now. The judge hadn't even done anything. Oh, they're, you know, I don't have a jury trial. And there's like, oh, yeah, they didn't give him a jury trial. I mean, there's people that don't know that his lawyer messed up.
Right.
And
Right.
he doesn't have the best lawyers because they're just they're just not smart. They're not. I mean, they want it for the prestige, but I mean, you can't check a box. I mean, how bad of a lawyer are you? You don't have a paralegal that can check that for you.
Well, the thing with Donald Trump is if he had a jury, then he'd say, I didn't want a jury. I got forced,
Well,
a jury forced on me. It doesn't make a difference. He will jump on anything and be contradictory to anything as long as he feels like it's going to help him or benefit him. That's the childish in him. He can't see that it's so obvious and so stupid. He doesn't have the mental filter to say, that's, I'd like to do that, but that's crazy. Nobody's ever going to buy that. He just says whatever comes out of his mouth and he doesn't think about it. You know, that's why when it comes to, you can't say these things, you get him riled up enough, he can't control himself. That's the true weakness of Donald Trump and the weakness of a lot of people. I tried to explain this to my son one time. You know, he was like any young man who is quick to anger. And
mhm.
the thing I realized when I was young, my father would be quick to anger. And it was it because he couldn't control it, or was it a tool he thought worked? And that tool was intimidation. And if I'm 7 years
Yeah,
old, he quicks to anger and he gets what he wants from me because I'm afraid of him. I've told people this before. If you're somebody with a bad temper, in your mind, you think that makes you appear strong. But in fact, it's making you appear weak because of all the things
yes.
you should be able to do. You can't even control your emotions. Emotions are to be controlled, not to control you. And if you can't control your emotions, you're fucking weak. And Donald Trump is the weakest of all.
Don't we have the Georgia? Isn't that coming up too? With those two
Right.
mass trials, isn't that coming up too?
October
That's something
23rd.
that I want to watch. Yeah, because they're going to have cameras on that, aren't they? Even
Yeah.
if Trump's not there, they're still going to. It's still going to be about him in a lot of ways.
It'll be on TV. And the interesting thing about that is we've had one person cut a deal and is going to testify against Donald Trump and some of the higher ups. 23rd, we have Ken Cheesebro and we have Sidney Powell. They wanted a speedy trial. So October
Yeah.
23rd is when it's going to happen. And I have a feeling with those two, somebody should have said, be careful what you ask for. You may just get it. But the interesting thing about it is, I heard them talking about there's there's the one that rolled. There's Sidney Powell and Ken Cheesebro, but there's 5 or 6 others that have yet to waive a speedy trial. They haven't waived the speedy trial. And some
Yeah.
people are suggesting that they may be looking to plead out as well, which they should. They're nobodies and they're going to get off on probation or something like that. So they should roll. And if that happens, think about that. We've got 19 people. We've got one that rolled, 2 that are going to court, but they may roll 2 if they're allowed to, because Sidney Powell is kind of, and Cheesebro are kind of in the upper echelon. Those are the people that need to be rolled on. I don't know, unless they're going to use it to get Donald Trump. But we could have 9 people that pled out, and now we only have 10 defendants. And Fonnie Willis is trying real hard to get them all together to prosecute all at once. Donald Trump isn't going to want to do that, but he may not have a fucking choice. This is a RICO charge. This isn't a regular criminal trial.
You know, Mike, I'm old enough to remember when a candidate had to drop out of the presidential race because one of a girl that wasn't his wife sat on his lap. And there was so
Exactly.
much outrage with that. Now
Gary
you got
Hart.
somebody facing 91 charges, and he's the front runner of the party. So I mean, what that tells you everything you need to know right there, man.
As a country,
everything you
we've
need to know
slid a
right there.
long way. As a country, we've slid so
Yeah.
far, and our
Yeah, damn that Gary
expectations.
Hart.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you think of Gary Hart and you think of Al Franken, I mean, who got fucked over more than Al Franken in this deal? He quit. He did the right thing
Yeah.
under the circumstances, and George Santos is there. Now he's got 20 thief felony charges. We got Marjorie Taylor Greene. We've got Lauren Boebert, who's committing sex crimes in a fucking theater, and she's still there. Al Franken, he's a goofy guy. He's a funny guy. Maybe what he did was wrong, but by comparison, it ain't fucking nothing.
Yeah. Democrats have a conscience on this where they want to do the right thing, and sometimes they don't fight enough. I kind of thought that way when I was voted Republican. But I mean, I don't think Franklin should have resigned because it was an accusation, but it was the height of Me Too. So I mean, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't sometimes. I mean, he did what he thought was right, but I don't think there's anything to stop him from running for re-election. I think he'd win.
Yeah, but he's getting older too. He's up in his 70s, so I don't know that he will. I'm sure he's got plenty of money.
That's true.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him run for president, but he's getting too old too. So who knows? Anyway, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you, Jace, for coming by and helping me out here. It's always great to talk to you. You have some great insights, and
thanks for having me.
Being a blue dot in Texas, that gives you an interesting perspective into what may seem to outsiders as a Republican cesspool, not unlike Florida.
Yeah, when you look down here and you hear about crazy ass Texas, just remember there are a lot of us down here who aren't exactly as crazy as that. So there may be some hope for this old state yet.
No, I think there is. I think there'll be a turnaround in this country and in these respective states like Florida and Texas. And I think we're going to be all right. A lot of people are fatalistic about what the future holds. I'm not. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be better than we imagined. We just have to be patient, keep fighting, and just wait. Just fucking wait. All right, Eric, thank you for coming by.
That's why we tune in and
no, what's that?
And that's why we tune in every day, Mike. And that's why we tune in every day, because of your optimism, Mike. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Those of you that are listening, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.